작년에도 저희 디지털 라운지에 왔었는데 이더리움 블록체인 기반으로 가상화폐 플랫폼을 만들어서 그 안에서 실질적으로 사람들이 토지를 살 수도 있고 팔 수도 있는 그런 기반의 서비스고요. 작년 말쯤에 실질적으로 토지를 판매를 해서 성공적으로 끝내친 바 있습니다. 디센트럴랜드의 코파운더인 아리랑 에스테반을 소개하겠습니다. 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
Hi everyone, I'm Ari, and this is Esteban, my co-founder. We are the team at Decentraland, a blockchain-based virtual world. And today we're going to talk a bit about what we have been doing for the past few months and what's next for us in 2018. But first, I want to thank all the Hash team to have us here. We actually were already in this launch back in August, a few days before our token sale, and have very fond memories of that one. So happy to be here again. Here. I broke it. All right, cool. So we started to work on Decentraland because we ourselves are huge sci-fi fans. I don't know if any of you have seen movies like The Matrix or read books like Ready Player One. You may be familiar with the concept of the metaverse. The metaverse is a shared multiplayer virtual world in which humans and computer agents interact. And what all these worlds have had in common, well, first of all, these virtual worlds are very real. They represent a multi-billion-dollar market. Some examples are Second Life, World of Warcraft, Minecraft, which you probably know. And what these virtual worlds have had in common over the past 2 decades is that they have always been owned by a central entity. What this means is that a small group of people have had the ability to determine the fate of the system by themselves. Okay, so in virtual worlds, usually people spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on in-game items. And the fact that these items live in a centralized database means a huge counterparty risk. For instance, if the company running the servers gets hacked, or if they go out of business, as it happened last year with Altspace VR, you as a user suddenly lose all of your game assets. Also, the fact that these virtual worlds are controlled by a central entity means that they have the ability to do whatever they want. For instance, they can print unlimited currency, they can change the rules of the world, and they can even delete the users. So centralization has become such a huge issue in some of these virtual worlds that the users have already put nicknames on that. One example that I mentioned is Second Life, published by Linden Labs. And the users at Second Life call these acts where the publisher changed the rules of the world, acts of Linden. It's a little, like, what's happening? Ahí va. Ahí está. No, vuelve. All right, cool. So we created Decentraland to create a virtual world that is owned by the community, and because it's decentralized, it removes all of this risk that I mentioned previously. So there are maybe 3 guiding principles for Decentraland. First of all, it is owned by its users. So Decentraland is not only an open source project, it is an open economy where all the virtual space, all the land on which the content happens, it's in the hand of the users. Also, we are creating a system in which there are not going to be any type of acts of gods. What this means is that all the items reside on Ethereum smart contracts, and as such, they're immutable, meaning nobody has the power to change them. What this also means is that any sort of world changes of policies in the game are going to be conducted through a system of decentralized governance. And lastly, unlike a lot of other virtual worlds, in Decentraland we're focusing on the economy. What this means is that By enabling people to pay and get paid in cryptocurrency, we are giving content creators the ability to monetize their content without intermediaries and without having to pay us any type of fees. Because in our business model, unlike any publisher or any app store or any other virtual world, the content creator pays absolutely no fees to us other than buying the space in which they publish the content.
So Decentraland is a multi-user persistent wall based on peer-to-peer technologies like WebRTC or IPFS, which means that there's no central server needed. That's our goal, that we can shut down our servers and the world keeps on going. And it's all powered by Ethereum and open source software with the goal of being able to continue to keep that promise of surviving us shutting down the servers.
So
So that was a brief overview of what is Decentraland, and we want to introduce some of the use cases behind it. Okay. Sorry about that. So Decentraland is mainly a platform for gaming, but also as a social space. It's a place for online communities to develop, and to a lesser extent, it's going to be a place for e-commerce and advertising. So let's talk about gaming. So Decentraland, in essence, is a virtual world that is divided in parcels of land. Parcels of land is, you can probably understand it as a 3D domain. So on a web domain, you can publish any sort of content and application. On a 3D domain, like the land, you can do the same. And probably at the end of last year, you became acquainted with CryptoKitties. So CryptoKitties is a game whose logic resides on a smart contract, and surprisingly enough, it was very popular. So this game had a very basic logic, and where you could breed and mate the kitties and trade them for each other, but they had the peculiarity that the kitties, the items, were scarce, and because of their scarcity, and arguably because of their value, they became very valuable. So people became like very addicted to the logic of trading this, and just like in 2017, we saw a lot of people investing in ERC20 tokens. Now, towards the end of last year and early this year, there are a lot of projects that are creating games, and people are starting to treat these assets also as like an investment. So unlike ERC20 tokens, the land or the CryptoKitties or the items of any other games, they cannot be represented on an ERC20 token because they are not fungible. What this means is that each item is different to the other. For instance, the land is different from other land because each land has its own geographical location, and the same goes with the kitties. Each CryptoKitty has its own attributes, which makes it different from other kitties. And that's why since late last year, we've been working with the CryptoKitty team on coming up with a new token standard for these items. Originally, it was the ERC 721, but then we came up with our new standard that Esteban's going to talk about a bit more later. So the value, so when these games became popular, our community suddenly realized that Decentraland was the ideal playing ground for these games because even though they're valuable, currently they are only numbers on a ledger, to put it in a way, and they can only be experienced on a centralized website. So Decentraland is going to serve as a place first where you can show your valuable items to others because people like to show off, and also a place where you could integrate those items into more complex gaming logics and probably, for instance, have your kitty fight another kitty or have games that are already coming up with more complex gaming mechanisms. So one such game is from our friend here. It's called Ethereum. Ethereum is a game where you have monsters, and each of these monsters is a non-fungible asset. And you can challenge, you can train your monsters and level them up and fight against castles. Similar to Pokemon perhaps, but it's decentralized, and this gives the users the certainty that their assets are not going to be eroded in value. So these games have been incredibly profitable. Since they launched last month, and they're a team of 3 people, they've already made $300,000 in revenue. And another sign that this year we're going to see a lot more than this of these types of games is that public companies like Baidu or NetEase in China have come up with similar games. So we foresee that this is going to be a very large market in itself, and we're going to be focusing some of our efforts on supporting this ecosystem.
Yes. So given that it's going to be such an important thing for us, for Decentraland, and for the whole ecosystem, we're pushing a lot of effort into making this standard a really a good standard. Last week we've been in San Francisco with the IDEO folks and the 0x team trying to improve on this standard, which we call ERC 821. The code is out there already. You can fork that and create your own NFT asset registry. Some of the improvements that we made to the standard is having it use less gas and make it more safe than it was before. Right now there are about $4 million USD in worth of tokens lost in contracts that cannot spend the tokens that they have. So that's why ERC 223 and 777 are trying to solve that problem. So we've added some security measures so that we're sure that your contract can spend the tokens before actually sending them towards that contract.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our land sale. So back in August, September, we had our token sale, and then we started immediately working on, well, growing the team, but other than that, on distributing all the land on which people are going to create the content. So we did this in 2 different ways, because people in our community wanted to own their land privately, but they also wanted to participate in larger projects. So for those that wanted to participate in larger projects, we gave them the ability to publish proposals for what we call districts. A district is basically a group of people that has a shared interest or a shared aesthetic, for instance, a cyberpunk city. So we created an Ethereum application where any of our users could use the mana token to buy land and send it to the districts. The most popular district is the one that I mentioned. It's called Ethereum, and people contributed over $1 million worth of land to their district, surprisingly, right? And also, the other way for us to distribute the land was to have an auction. So the reason we had an auction was, as I said, all the lands had their own location. So they were, people thought of different lands as having different value because of their location. Mainly because we specified that the users would all spawn or appear in the center of the world. So naturally, all the lands that were nearby that center, people paid a lot more for that than the ones farther out. So we sold a total of slightly over 70,000 land parcels, and people spent a little over $16 million at a time. So this was not another token sale. For this, people used our token, our ERC20 token called Mana, and as they used the token, it didn't come to us. It was just burned. So a total of 160 million mana were burned, and that represented 15% of the circulating supply. And that was just the first sale. We're probably going to have another one in a couple or so months after we ship other products. So this is what the map would look like after the auction. So the gray and white areas are public roads and public plazas respectively, so you cannot own these parts, and the content on the plazas is going to be determined by the community, either by voting or by the community renting them off to projects or anyone who wants to put their content there, because it's very valuable space. Then the light blue areas are all these districts. Etheria, which is the largest one, is the one on the upper right-hand corner. And there were a total of 55 projects of this kind. So a lot of them are online communities that just want to have a place to hang out, like they do on online chats. Others are like private groups that want to create business or games. They're all of all sorts. You can go to our GitHub to see them. And finally, the green parcels are the ones that were bought privately by individuals. So the way this worked is that you could bid on a land and someone could outbid you. So we ended up having like a bidding war, and people ended up paying like pretty significant money for this. So this is a visual representation of what the relative price of the parcels was. So the areas that are in lighter red mean that they were more expensive, and there are pretty like fascinating patterns here. So we can see that people paid a lot more for areas around the plazas and around the roads, and also for some areas that are next to the districts. To give you an idea, the land that someone paid the most for is one land right near the center, and each land is a 10 by 10, so pretty much like this room, and the highest bidder paid about $90,000 for a single land. But the average price for all the lands were $300 each, and for the ones in the inner circle, so in the areas closer to the center, were about $2,000 to $3,000. So this is another visual representation of the price. It's supposed to be moving, but as you can tell, the land parcels near the center, people paid like a lot more relative to the rest. Okay, and I was not going to present this, but so as we are going to support a lot of projects that have non-fungible tokens as their basis, we started to design and work on coming up with a decentralized exchange where all these projects can sell their tokens. So this is going to work as it's going to be decentrally curated. So it's going to be a token curated registry, basically, where there are people that have an incentive to keep the content on the marketplace good, because that will drive the value of their tokens up. Okay.
So some project updates since then, since the auction came out. We've got a lot of teams working on different projects and products. We're releasing tomorrow or this week a land manager for the people that participated in the auction to transfer back and forth land to other users. And this land manager is slightly going to become a decentralized marketplace, which is us testing the technology that I just mentioned. In this decentralized exchange, you're going to be able to buy and sell land directly without any counterparty risk, because it's just a smart contract, pretty much like EtherDelta or 0x. We've also have a CLI, which is the tool that developers use in order to upload content to IPFS, to link that content in the blockchain, and to manage the current status of all of that. The CLI also communicates with those servers, because up until now, we are centralizing the IPFS part a little bit. We're making sure that we provide some availability for all of the content, all of the 3D models, and all of the textures that our users are using to serve their LAN parcels. The most important aspect of the project, the client, the World Explorer, still in very early stage. We're working with some game studios and companies creating an SDK so we can make sure that they can create their experiences and have their games inside of the world. We've also had a team working on the performance of this because it's pretty heavy. We need to hit at least 60 or 90 frames per second in order to so that our users don't vomit, because that's a pretty big requirement when you're using a VR headset. We've got the team working on the VR interactions, how is it going to feel, how the world is going to feel, how transactions can take place between you and the landowner and other users, how can you send money to other users in a safe way, how am I going to show my crypto collectibles in this virtual reality world, how can I make sure that this crypto collectible is a legitimate piece of art, how do I know that the person that owns this land is also the owner of that crypto collectible. And so we are looking into different ways of having some kind of like check, like the Twitter accounts or some kind of shining around the objects. We've got a team working on content for the Terraform, on making the roads and making the plazas and all of that, making it look pretty. We've got a team working on content moderation, which is for all the content that is served from our own servers, we need to be sure that it's appropriate for the audiences. So we're taking a proactive approach and also a reactive approach to make sure that people don't see things that may offend them. Lastly, we've got a team of research working on some scalability problems. We're working on scaling out of Ethereum's speed in 3 different ways. Number one is doing things similar to what we did on the auction. The auction was an off-chain process in the sense that everybody put their mana in order to participate in the auction, but the auction was all done on our servers in a cryptographically verifiable way. And at the end, we dumped the final state back into the blockchain. So that allowed us to have all the bids and all of the different actions that the users took during the auction happen really fast, but still having the cryptographic certainty that that's an honest process. So that's the number one way in which we are trying to scale our transactions. Number two is we're starting a research group working on a plasma implementation. We've got some very early proof of concepts, but it's probably going to be a month-long, if not a year-long process. We're also talking with the other teams that are creating different plasma implementations out there. We're looking at other ways to scale, but those are the 2 main ones. The other one is using Raiden or Lightning Network for the simple payments. I already told you about ERC-821, which is the token standard. So that's kind of like what the team is working on. I wanted to share as well our roadmap on what are we going to work on next. We're organizing the work that our teams are doing in different user themes. User themes are the hypothesis on what we think that our users need. Number one is to trade digital assets inside of the world. Another user need is to build on top of their land. We expect our users to want to make money inside of Decentraland. This is also aligned with our idea of having or putting our attention first into making an economy within this game. We are hoping our users socialize online and grow their communities. This is mostly given what we saw with the different districts. Like if there are groups of people with $1 million worth of land, I guess that they've got some pretty big plans. The last user theme is to avoid undesirable content. So right now, based on these needs, we are working on showing crypto collectibles. What I told you before about verifying the authenticity of crypto collectibles that are shown inside of the world. We've got the CLI and we're improving on that, making sure that the users can edit their scenes on top of their land. We are developing this marketplace so users can buy and sell land from each other. Our content team is working on the default roles and the default experience. And we're also coming up with a few different proof of concept games so that we make sure that the default experience is a good one. We're working with the district leaders on how can we make the experience of managing all of that land and deploying them, all of their land in an effective way, because these are very heterogeneous organizations. Some of them are groups of 7 or 10 people, some of them are 2 or 3, some of them even disappeared and we don't know what to do about them. But those are the smaller ones. We also have some tools that we eventually are trying to automate with through different ways. Right now we are probably going to integrate with Mechanical Turk to have people look at screenshots of the world and judge on whether that content is suitable for our audiences or only mature audiences and stuff like that. Next, we'll be working on having games and not only like display of crypto collectibles. For example, the project that Ari just mentioned, the theme one, we're looking to have users battle their crypto collectibles inside of Decentraland. We want people to be able to develop those games. That's another one of our focus on a roadmap. We're hoping people can buy and sell these crypto collectibles inside of the virtual world, inside of the experience. We're working on we've got it almost ready, we just have to release it. We've got a governance app so that districts can vote on certain issues in a simple way, probably with tokens that are distributed to them because of having land in those districts. And better tools for these districts to organize themselves, because they've got some parts of their districts that are public places. There are some parts that they are renting. some of the guys in our community are coming up with smart contracts to rent the land to other users. So there's a lot of possibilities in that area. And in the future, we're looking towards opening up this to be a general purpose virtual world, so that you can develop any crypto application that you want inside of the world, play games, or looking into different use cases like creating big events, which require a lot, whole different level of scale. But it's something that we'll tackle on once we finish it with all the other user stories. So that's pretty much it. That's our current status and what we're looking forward in the future. Hope you like the presentation, and if you got any questions, I think that now's the moment.
Thank you very much. 가벼운 말해서 질문 있으신 분들 하셔도 될 것 같습니다. 손 드시면 제가
First of all, thanks for your presentations. I have 3 questions. The first is, actually I heard about some kind of the command line interface. But I think it's only for the initial developer programmer. But actually we are looking for the access of the INH. So we are actually, do you have a plan about for users, the normal users, to build their own structure on their land, like some user familiar, some graphic edit tool? That is first. The second is, actually here in Korea we already invest many lands to the district. For example, Vega City and Adrian City. But both they release even white paper, something like white paper, and they even release, they try to just release the Vegas coins, something like that. But others just keep mum. Do you have any information from that? So, do you have any plan to control the district? That's the second and last is this almost the same question, but we are eagerly waiting for. I think this time is the edge of the Bronze Age. So we eagerly want to access some Iron Stage because we want to sell and buy some lands and now fungible tokens, something like that. That's last. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks for your questions. So I think the first question was about whether we would have tools for the end user to be able to create the content. So actually, before we released the CLI, we were working on an end user tool, like a drag and drop editor. But we realized, and by talking to other projects that have done something similar, we realized that our focus should be initially on the developers because they are the ones that, with the least amount of effort from our end, will be able to come up with the highest type of quality. Because on the command line, you can create, you can use arbitrary code and create more complex experiences than what we will be able to deliver with a drag and drop editor in a matter of months. So our focus, at least initially, is only going to be on developers. So the way this is playing out for individuals, we opened up a marketplace where actually we partner up with District 0x, which has ETHLands. ETHLands is a marketplace for technical talent. So what a lot of people are doing is just contracting or hiring 3D developers, artists, so that they can build it for them. And for the districts, the way it's playing out is a lot of them have internally some developers, and they have those developers create the content for all the districts, or they are as well subcontracting to other people. So in a nutshell, initially the focus is going to be on developers, and later on, but it's not our focus now. We're going to eventually have tools for the end user. So the second question, I'm going to ask you to repeat it. So it was something about the districts. So, I mean, our view with Decentraland is that once the land is in the hands of the users, we don't really want to meddle with what they do or what they don't do. But let's say for the past maybe month, people were more focused on acquiring the land, but over the past couple of weeks, we started seeing a lot of the projects come up with public proposals of what exactly they're going to do on the land, how they're going to get there, how to budget for it. And actually from Decentraland, we've been like offering them help, whether it's technical or maybe some initial funding so that they can get to an MVP. But the idea for us is that they will be able to be on their own. Like we want to help them get started, of course, and we're going to put effort on that, but we're not going to be moderating what the users do. And the third question, could you repeat it for me, please?
The surveys, actually we want to know if you like time and date, but just it's okay to approximate some timetable about maybe access the high age.
Okay. So he presented all the projects that we have ongoing. And until we launch the public product, it's going to be at the very least 6 months. So until then, what people are going to be able to do is buy land at the marketplace and build the content and maybe share the content with other people. But the end experience of the web browser client or the VR client are not going to be publicly accessible until much later this year, because this. So while we like creating everything in the open, because we are used to building open source software, since we are sort of like a public company, it's very important to have like a good release where all the kinks have been ironed out. So we're going to delay the release until we have like a good final version. So to give you an example, we were just talking to a gaming company, and they told us that it usually takes about 2 years for them to release anything. And we finished our token sale in September. So I think we're moving really fast. We grew our team from 5 to 20 people in the past month and a half, but it's going to take a little bit of time. However, we're like, if anyone's really like keen on seeing what we're doing, we're opening up the client to some early adopters so that we can start getting feedback on how it works, and we can develop it along their needs. Thanks for your questions.
질문 또 있으십니까?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here in Korea. So let me get this straight. So there are lots of use cases, right? Gaming, e-commerce, online communications. But you said mainly gaming will be main focused area. So would there be specific reasons why gaming, or like, do you guys have better environment for gaming development?
So it's a matter of focus. We can only cater to one thing at a time, and in every startup, you always have to try to solve one problem very well before you expand on other areas. So if we didn't do that, we would be at risk of not really solving anything well. And initially, we were going to have an approach of being like a general purpose open virtual world from the very beginning. But given the traction that all the games are having, and there's a very good differentiator for us when we support crypto collectible-based games, and that the market is seeing that. I mean, actually, it has already become a good business use case. So we're going to pursue that initially. However, I mean, we're still developing some of the functionalities that would enable things like communication. For instance, pretty much from the beginning, you're going to be able to talk to people via voice and text chat. So that's going to enable other types of interactions. But most of our marketing resources and business development resources and development resources are going to be focused on making projects like Ethermon very successful on Decentraland before we move beyond that.
Then, like, related questions. Are you guys a big gamer? like, or used to be? May?
Yeah, so I mean, while growing up, I used to be playing games all the time and online multiplayer games. Nowadays, I don't play as much because I work mostly. And also, I was a big fan of collectible card games like Magic the Gathering, and that's why our token is called Mana.
Thank you.
Yeah, here we go.
네, 혹시 마지막 질문 하나만 더 받고 질문 끝내겠습니다. 혹시 있으시면. 네, 그러면 질문 여기서 마치도록 하고요. 저희 다음 거 들어가기 전까지는 5분간 쉴 시간 갖도록 하겠습니다. 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. Thank you very much.
Thank you.